sugar bad, carbs bad. If there's one thing I know the world hates right now, it's anything processed. It's just so easy to make villains of everything when you're kind of not looking at what science says. What's going on, friend? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
And today's episode, Processed Protein, How Much is Too Much, is inspired by a lot of my clients, a lot of my friends, a lot of anyone. If there's one thing I know the world hates right now, it's anything processed. And everyone wants organic, they want healthy, they want all these things. And in general, people say, I don't want processed. I don't want to have too much protein powder. I don't want protein snacks. But I don't think people really analyze why. So I actually did like some research here because I have my thoughts, but I wanted to do a bit more of a deep dive, and I want to talk about what processing actually is. So I would break processing down into two different factors. So processing can be described in one of two ways. It could be that there's a million ingredients, a bunch of different dyes, a bunch of different sugars, a bunch of different things like that. Or it can actually be that the process of making it is more complex. But that shouldn't really affect how you view something. So like a tier 1, level 1 minimally processing, think of Greek yogurt. You need to process to make Greek yogurt, to have non-fat Greek yogurt. It needs to be processed, but they're not adding things on top. They're basically taking out, right? And the same with protein powder. They actually take whole milk and they'll separate the caseins from the proteins and they'll filter it down to actually make it. So I actually took notes on this because it's a little more technical than it is for me, but so it's derived from whole food. It undergoes mechanical filtration. There's no structural change to the amino acid sequence, and then it will include very few ingredients, usually just whey isolate, and one or two other things. Of course, there may be some flavoring, but as a whole, it isn't that processed. They're not adding a ton of ingredients. There's a good chance your Wonder Bread is going to be net more processed. So that's where I would say this is like a level 1. Pasteurized egg whites, chicken breast. This is more of like what most people see as good, but generally protein gets bumped down because it's seen as like this horrible thing, when in reality, it really isn't that bad. And it's a tool you can enjoy. And then more of a level 2 processing would be things more like protein bars that are like left on the shelf that have a ton of ingredients that will last for a year. Things like flavored yogurts or deli meats. So things that are heavily processed. And generally the fear with this is it gets more funky because there's nitrates, phosphates, preservatives, all these different things that are just scary that we don't like, right? And they'll use other things, like they'll use certain sugars or emulsifiers, stabilizers, flavor enhancers. Like this is where it gets really messy. So in that case is where people want to minimize that. But like I said, protein powder will get grouped in like this. But I just want to reframe your thinking. And especially if you understand, I think most people don't even know protein powder is like a derivative of milk. So if you wouldn't see milk as ultra processed, I wouldn't be too concerned about protein powder. Saying so, there are concerns with processed foods. So research has shown that ultra processed food correlates with a higher cause of all mortality. So this is usually where people get worried. But most generally, it's not protein. These studies aren't done specifically for protein. They're done for ultra processed foods like McDonald's, where you're having a ton of carbs, saturated fats, trans fats. So that's where processing gets really pushed into one category. And protein has been studied rigorously, and it's shown that there's no danger to your kidneys. There's no increased mortality just from having protein. In fact, it's the opposite. Protein actually enhances your quality of life. So I think people look at the problem too wrong. I would rather myself have more processed proteins and meet my protein goals and not have enough protein and fill it with other poor quality food. Saying so, we want to control not only for like what's okay, we want to optimize for what's the best. So that's where like how much is too much is a personal thing. And you have to understand like most of the things you eat are going to be heavily processed. There's processing in everything. Your water is treated. The air has carcinogens in it. Like, so I think people will just demonize things so quickly, but I wouldn't demonize processed proteins. And I would actually think it's worse if you're not hitting that protein and you're under eating nutrition or you're eating the wrong food. So instead, if they're a tool you use to support your protein goals, I think that's okay. Now, there are some problems with having too much processed protein. It can get boring. Having a ton of protein powder just gets plain boring. You could be missing out on some benefits like more leucine, more amino acids from like a whole chicken breast, or especially meat proteins that could have some more bioavailability and density behind them, which can be a benefit. But at this point, I would argue more like you're splitting hairs. Another issue issue for me can be digestive comfort. Some of them will have certain sugar alcohols or lactose if you're a lactose person, such as myself. That's where it's a lot harder for me to have like a protein bar. It just bugs me more. So I stay away from it, and I actually consume very minimal processed protein, but I don't think it's a huge problem, and I still enjoy it. And I like knowing that I can have a chip that's literally a protein chip. Like I think that's pretty cool. So I think you need to draw a line that's realistic for you. And I think understanding what processed proteins actually are can actually help with this decision. So if all of your protein is coming from these sources, like one thing Kyle always says, so I'll pass over to him, is that you're usually not prepared.
Yeah, this is something I actually had to have a client, and shout out to Daniel. He was, we were looking through his My Fitness Pal. I was giving him some tips, and like he was hitting his protein, but we both had to say, you know what, like we've got to take a step back. Like, where can we prepare better? Where can we go through like more cooking? Where can we do some more meal prepping? Where can we get some more, single ingredient or like very few ingredient and like less processed stuff? Just because, like, to me, once again, if we hit our protein, that is great. You'll have many muscle gain benefits. You'll have a lot of great fat loss benefits. But when I see, and actually it's funny, I had another conversation years ago with a client, and he was telling me he was like, when he first started having many, many scoops of protein powder to hit the number. And when I assign protein numbers, I don't assign it unreasonable. Like if you're 170 pounds, I'm not giving you 300 grams. I'll probably give you a gram per pound that you weigh or slightly less, especially if I'm trying to build you up. But I remember he was just having so much powder, and I'm like, dude, we got to have some whole meals. And like the main thing is just we have to prepare, right? Because if it's like you're having bars and chips and Fairlifes and like everything, I can tell you're not sitting down and you're having a proper lunch. Your breakfast, you're probably on the go because you're just running out of the house and you're unprepared. And dinner, you're just, once again, not prepared. And my biggest issue when it comes down to this stuff is like, once again, if you're not prepared, that is just not an ideal thing for your fitness journey, because you're not probably getting enough veggies in, you're probably not getting enough micronutrients, and there's a lot of downsides, although you're able to say, hey, I've hit my protein targets for the day. But the other thing is that when it comes to these other protein sources, such as chicken, such as, lean turkey, like,
Yeah, Kyle nailed it. I just want to jump in and say, like, protein supplements are supplemental to your diet. So I think disassociating it from like, this is the only way I can get protein. And like Kyle said, you might need to learn some new tools. Like if you're not getting protein, the only way you get it is protein powder, protein chips, protein bars. Start looking at like, okay, what's a high protein breakfast? Like, oh, egg whites have a ton of protein. Like I actually like egg whites, sick. Or I like Greek yogurt, or whatever it is for you. Like turkey bacon's an awesome source. And of course that is more processed as well. So that gets away from the point, but you can start to experiment with different things, and you can start to see what's right for you, and understanding that it's a supplemental thing to your diet. And I think, like Kyle said, the more you can lean to whole foods, because it's tough if you're just always eating like little dinky snacks as well instead of good quality meals. Like a stir fry is going to make you feel awesome because you're getting a ton of fiber, you're getting a lot of awesome, amazing complex carbs, you're getting a ton of protein, and it's going to be very voluminous and fill you up. And that's where you're going to get a lot of benefit. And like at its root, there isn't much scientific actual negatives towards protein. Like in general, we know processed food doesn't make us feel the best, but in terms of a body composition standpoint, like in what science shows so far, having more processed protein isn't a huge deterrent. But I think, like Kyle said, even on a psychological, if like you're like, the only way I can get it is from this, that's not a good thing. And that's why for me, like I hit my protein no problem, and I'm having over 200 grams Greek yogurt breakfast. I'll usually have like a burrito bowl style lunch. I'll usually have some kind of protein snack in the afternoon to some degree, and then this is usually where I'll have something like a Quest chip, a Fairlife, just something easy. And sometimes I can avoid this as well, but it's something I'll do. And then for dinner, I'll have like a lean meat variant, whatever that is, lean beef, ground turkey, chicken, and I'll hit my protein no problem just from that. But you can see the core of it is whole foods, and I'm using it. We were traveling recently, and I crushed like 4 Fairlife of those little proteins because I'm in a car. I have very limited options. So like to me, it worked. It was totally fine, and it wasn't as much of an issue. So it's more that reflection, and I really like Kyle's point too about preparation. And like also ask yourself what's sustainable. If you can only hit your protein when you buy like 80 protein bars, like you're not going to eat protein bars the rest of your life, like all the time. There's just no way.
A lot of people are so reliant on these extra things. And once again, the way that I've looked at it, because I used to be that person, I just remember being like, hey, I'm going to just go get it from like mass gainers, from this, from that, and then like never actually pay attention. But when you actually look up like a specific food, such as a chicken breast, and when you actually see all the great stuff in it, you're going to be blown away, right? Like there's so many amazing vitamins and minerals and nutrients and like all this great stuff. So you're missing out if like the core of your diet, I'd say at least 90+% isn't coming from even salmon. Like when you actually look at salmon, I know Josh doesn't love it, but I've been having it at least once per week. There's omega 3s. There's so many great things in it. And so I'd be doing myself a disservice if I wasn't having chicken breast and lean ground beef and, lean ground turkey, which I just made the other day, and like salmon and all this other stuff. But at the same time, there have been many times where I've been on the road or even like a day where I'm going out to dinner and I'm saving a lot of calories. I will end up having a little bit of the extra stuff. But I think right now in this current market and the way things are these days, it is just being so blown out of proportion where on one end, I'm so happy because I feel like 90+% of people are getting way too low protein. Like when you look at it, people are recommending and people are having, let's say, 50 grams of protein as a 150-pound individual, which is horrible. So I love to see all of these different marketing things. And even when I went into Target a couple weeks ago, everything was turning protein related. So in that sense, it's awesome because it's getting people to think about it. But at the same time, one of my biggest issues is a lot of you will spend tons of money because there's a cereal that's protein packed and it's going to taste so garbage and it's filled with like 7,000 different things. So I think one of the best things you can do when you go experiment and you try new things is ask yourself like what makes sense. Like I saw on the shelf a protein water. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be a thing. I'm just going to drink regular water. And then if I want, I'll have a scoop of protein on the side, right? But when you kind of look at cereals and you look at all these other things, like a lot of them are trying to do this thing, and then you just end up like having this thing in your house here. You're just like, I'm never gonna have. So I think just be careful with it because I love it and I think it's awesome. But there's a lot of companies out there that are just like putting protein behind the name, and it just doesn't taste that good as well. So that's also not ideal.
Yeah, now there's a lot of marketing with everything to have protein, and most of that will just be some whey worked into this pretty much, or derivative of a whey isolate, and they'll just put a tiny little bit in. And I think what Kyle was getting at is like not everything you need to eat needs to be this ultra processed food that has a sprinkling of protein in it. And instead, you should really evaluate what works for you. Like if you like a Quest chip and that helps you in your day, fantastic. If you always like to have, you like something sweet and you want to have a protein ice cream and you want to get a little bit of protein while having your ice cream, you can. At the same time, you don't need to, and you can just have a normal ice cream and just build around your day with protein in other ways, especially if you're getting it from whole sources. And I think if I paint two pictures for you, one, I wake up, I'm eating protein Pop-Tarts, then I crush 2 scoops of protein powder, and then I have 3 slices of protein infused bread with a little bit of butter on them, and then I have like a massive protein shake for lunch, and then I have Quest chips with like some protein cereal for dinner. Like you just feel gross. Like already I'm like, oh, I hate that. Whereas if I said, hey, in the morning we have an omelet with extra egg whites in it, we have a nice hearty omelet with like a lactose-free cheese. It's really already filtered high for protein. Our protein's already at 60. For lunch, we have an amazing burrito bowl, double chicken. For dinner, we have a nice like salad with a chicken on top of it and a ton of veggies, and then you finish it off with a cookie. Even though there's a cookie in there and that's like a super processed food, you're just going to feel way better. So look at protein the same way. Like your main source shouldn't just be from this stuff. And it's not to say it can't be. Like from a pure performance standpoint, like the processing isn't bad. I think it's more of a feel thing. And if you feel more bloated and you feel more sluggish, you could argue your performance could suffer. But if you need it to make ends meet, you can. It's just a very personal decision. I know some people just crush 3 scoops of protein powder, and it's like not inherently wrong, if that makes sense. But ultimately, to me, like Kyle said, even eating the colors of the rainbow, having more food diversity, trying different foods, I would argue you're going to feel the best. Your digestion's going to be the best. Your sleep's going to be the best. So I always like to work towards that. And I think you can always just improve upon your situation. If you're getting 100% processed quick proteins, bring it down to 80%. Make a little bit of a change. Try a lean meat. See how it feels and realize you won't die. Start with that change, then work it down. And I think it's a personal thing you can adjust and experiment. Try no process, try some. If you feel the same and it's way more convenient, what's wrong with that? So I just wanted to explain a little bit more behind the curtain because I just think it's so easy. Processing, it's horrible. Avoid it. So like there's more to it, right? And ultimately with the nutritional hierarchy of importance, Calorie intake will be number one. That is the most important thing. Next will be protein. There's the most power within that. That has the most ability to keep muscle, put on new muscle, supply amino acids to your body. Numerous benefits. From there, we can get into fiber and the specific breakdowns of carbs and fats. Then we can get into food quality, I would argue. And then we can get into like meal timing and super crazy things that have a tiny fraction of a benefit. So as a whole, just try and aim to eat better. I like 80-20. I'll work this in the 20. I'll work this in the 80. You can have some freedom. You can play with it. And if you're stuck and you're like, I don't even know what the heck to have for protein, I have two separate gifts. You can pick one or you can pick both. Just DM me. So one is my recipe guide. So they're literally recipes I have. It's like over 30 recipes, very professionally done. I made this super nice. You can scan them right into MyFitnessPal. Try cooking something new. They're all incredibly high protein. They're going to fit your macros. They're going to taste amazing, and they're totally free. So just go ahead and message me a recipe guide and I'll send that to you. I also have a suggested food list, which is like an amazing document that just gives you a ton of protein options, carb options, fat options, and you can mix and match and make a meal out of them and have a ton of fun. So that'll give you more ability to like minimize it and to see what feels best for you. So once again, you can grab that. You can message me recipe guide or suggested food list, or you can send me both things. I'll know exactly what to send you. I'll get that over, but I just wanted to break your thinking about this a bit more and have you understand it, because I think people are just quick to point and say sugar bad, carbs bad, protein, processed protein bad. Like, it's just so easy to make villains of everything when you're kind of not looking at the whole thing or looking at what science says. So wanted to have a bit of a real talk, wanted to dive into this. I hope this was insanely helpful. If it was, share this with a friend and I hope they get benefit out of it. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.